If you're serious about history and long-term survival, stay with me for the next minute, because this is one of those topics that rarely gets explained properly. What you're about to hear isn't pop history or romanticized Viking mythology. This is a real, documented survival system used by Norse settlers who lived where winter could last 9 months and mistakes meant death. Before we go further, subscribe to the Prepper Historian and share this with someone who actually values hard-earned historical knowledge. Channels like this survive only when serious viewers support serious content. Now let's get straight into it. When Norse settlers pushed into Greenland, Iceland, and the Arctic fringe of Scandinavia, they faced a problem most modern people underestimate. Firewood was scarce, storms were constant, visibility vanished for weeks at a time, sound carried for miles over snow and ice, attracting rivals, predators, and sometimes hostile locals. What they developed in response wasn't just a house. It was a system of living so efficient and quiet that later authorities actively discouraged its spread. The silent Viking home technique was about controlling heat, sound, and exposure at the same time. It wasn't magic. It was applied physics, biology, and social discipline layered together. Unlike later European settlers who built upward and outward, Norse Arctic homes were dug down. Turf houses were carved directly into hillsides or flat ground, using earth as the primary insulator. Thick sod walls trapped heat far better than timber ever could. Roofs were layered with birch bark and turf, creating a living, breathing insulation system that adjusted with the seasons. This design had a critical side effect most people miss. Sound died inside these structures. Wind noise was muted. Voices didn't carry. Even the crackle of fire was dampened by earth. In a land where being heard could mean being followed, silence was survival. If you apply this today, think less about cabins and more about earth-bermed shelters, root-cellar-style builds, or partially sunken outbuildings that naturally regulate temperature and acoustics. The silent technique relied on body heat, animal heat, and thermal mass instead of roaring fires. Families slept close together, often with livestock housed in adjoining sections, separated by stone and wood. Heat from animals slowly radiated into living spaces. Stone floors absorbed warmth during brief cooking periods and released it overnight. This wasn't primitive. It was deliberate fuel rationing. Fire was used sparingly, often only during food preparation. Smoke holes were narrow and carefully positioned to avoid light leakage. For modern preppers, this translates directly into thermal zoning. Keep heat sources centralized. Use masonry, water barrels, or stone to store warmth. Limit open flames and rely on retained heat rather than constant combustion. Archaeological and saga evidence suggests quiet behavior was culturally enforced in winter months. Loud activity indoors wasted energy and attracted attention outdoors. Children were taught early to move slowly, speak softly, and minimize unnecessary motion during extreme cold. This is the part later authorities reportedly discouraged. Silent living made communities harder to monitor and control. A settlement that produces little smoke, little sound, and little visible light is difficult to tax, conscript, or intimidate. Even today, Low signature living is a core survival principle. Reduce noise discipline in your household during emergencies. Practice working, cooking, and communicating quietly, especially at night. So, Viking Arctic homes, well, they used very minimal interior lighting. Oil lamps, for instance, were hooded, and the light was always reflected downward, not outward. Windows were pretty rare, and when they did exist, they were often covered with translucent animal membranes instead of glass. Now, this wasn't just about hiding from the outside world. It actually helped preserve night vision and reduced eye strain during those long, dark seasons. You can apply this now by using indirect lighting shielding windows and, well, practicing low-light navigation in familiar spaces. It saves fuel and, honestly, sharpens situational awareness. The home itself actually functioned as a food preservation system. Temperatures inside these homes stayed just above freezing even in brutal weather, which meant meat, dairy and fermented foods could be stored indoors without spoiling. Drying racks were built into rafters where warm air slowly circulated. Fish and meat cured passively without smoke most of the time. This technique reduced dependency on salt and firewood. For modern use, think of unheated pantries, cold rooms, or insulated sheds that maintain stable temperatures without electricity. Fermentation becomes easier when temperature swings are controlled naturally. As centralized power grew in medieval Scandinavia, authorities preferred visible, taxable settlements. Permanent chimneys, timber houses and open hearths made populations easier to track. Silent, low-signature homes just didn't fit emerging administrative systems. Knowledge wasn't lost, it was sidelined. That's why it matters now. We're rediscovering systems designed for scarcity, isolation and resilience rather than convenience. You don't need to live in the Arctic to use these principles. Earth insulation, thermal mass, low signature lighting, disciplined noise control and integrated food storage all translate to modern preparedness. Build downward when possible. Store heat instead of generating it endlessly. Train your household in quiet efficiency. Design spaces that work with the environment rather than fighting it. If this kind of deep historical survival knowledge matters to you, subscribe to The Prepper Historian. Share this with someone who still believes resilience comes from gadgets instead of systems. These techniques kept people alive for centuries. They're still relevant now.